Hi everyone, Kunimitsu here, coming in with a very quick video. I don't plan to take long for this one, but I just feel that there should probably be a proper update because I've seen quite a few people online looking around, questioning. Basically, anytime this name has been brought up, I've seen a mixture of different responses. But a lot of the responses I've been seeing as of late is what has happened since the whole situation, which, by the way, I already have a video on this. I'm not going to go over the situation. You've already heard the situation multiple times. All I'm here to do is just discuss what has happened afterwards. So, this is your only trigger warning. If you aren't triggered by the title of the video, this is your only trigger warning. I am about to talk about somebody whose name is very triggering to a lot of different people. And the only purpose for this video is just mainly to say what has happened since the situation has happened, since the disqualification, and pretty much since all the stuff has come out. What has happened since then? Okay. So with that out of the way, we are going to be talking about Sherry Pie. So, quick little disclaimer before we start the video, because I always feel like I have to say this. I am only mentioning this just because I don't see it talked about a lot. I don't see it mentioned a lot. I don't see very many people talking about the actual stuff that has happened recently. And some of it is quite notable stuff that I'm really surprised nobody's talking about. But quick little disclaimer. No, I do not support the actions of Sherry Pie. I stand with the victims. I 100% think her actions were wrong and she got rightfully what she deserved. With that being said, however, do not, and I am going to say this very clearly and very bluntly, I am aware Sherry Pie is still online. I am aware she is still performing in some spaces, and I'm aware that she is still active on some of her social media accounts, even if it's just through like little Instagram stories and whatnot. So what I am trying to say, don't send hate to anybody that I am going to mention here. Do not send hate to the victims. Do not send hate to Sherry Pie. Do not send death threats to the victims, and do not send death threats to Sherry Pie. We're not talking about the situation. We are talking about the aftermath. So with that being said, here we go. It's been, I think 2 years now since that whole situation happened. I think it's been 2 years. I'm not good at keeping track of time, but yeah, it's been 2 years. So let's see what has happened since Sherry Pie has gotten disqualified. We all know the Tamron Hall interview, but what is surprising is not a lot of people talk about this, but there was another drag performer who also interviewed Sherry very recently. It was after the Tamron interview, and nobody's really talking about it. But Logan Hardcore, I think is their name. I'll put their name in the description. But they did a really in-depth interview with Sherry, and it did answer a lot more questions, and it did make a lot more sense. So that's the first thing not a lot of people are mentioning is she actually had another interview after Tamron, which went into a lot more detail. I will be linking that interview in the description after the live. You can form your own thoughts on that. Now, the biggest piece of news that I'm honestly really surprised nobody is talking about is that one of the victims has actually come forward and forgiven Sherry Pie. I am not going to say their name, mainly out of protection for them. But if you look into it, it's pretty easy to find their name. But for their safety, I am not going to be saying their name. I will really only be saying names of them if they are necessary, but for the most part, to keep their um, safety in mind, I will not be mentioning any of the victims by name. But I will say one of the victims has come forward, has publicly forgiven Sherry, and is friends with her again. So this is actually a good first step for Sherry. People don't talk about that, but one of the victims has actually come forward and not only forgiven her, but is friends with her again. Another thing to take note of is Sherry has continued to get the therapy that she needs, which is good. BPD is a very serious thing. BPD is, if you don't, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. It is a very serious, I'm trying to be careful with my words here. It's a very serious condition that a lot of people have. And there's unfortunately not um thank you, Dragonfire. But BPD is a mental condition, and it can deeply affect on how someone can perceive the world. It can deeply affect on how somebody can view right and wrong, and it can often skewer how people act, how people are. I know this because I have family members that have this condition, and I have experienced it. I've experienced both good and bad interactions with family members who have this condition. So the fact that Sherry is even getting therapy at all and is still to this day continuing to get therapy, meaning just to put that into perspective, this person acknowledged what they did was wrong, did not try to hide behind any excuse, even if people want to make it seem like that is what they did. He did not hide behind an excuse. He owned up to what he did. He's acknowledging what he did harmed many people. And he is acknowledging that he himself also needs serious mental help. Sherry, if you somehow find this live, if you somehow are hearing this at this moment, know that there is always a chance for change. People aren't going to accept change right away, but guess what? Eventually, they will. And you have to remember, actions speak louder than words. So, what your actions are going to show are what will determine whether or not people should give you a second chance. With that being said, however, it is ultimately up to the victims. If they decide that you deserve a second chance, then you should get one. If they don't think you deserve one, then obviously that's that. With that being said, however, you one of them has come out publicly and forgiven you. So that is a good first step. At least you are making progress. You are overcoming many things, and you are showing that when you said you want to get better, get help, and try to fix the things that you did, you stood by that. People are not noticing it right now, and that is okay. Keep doing what you're doing because eventually people will start to notice that you're trying, that you are actively trying to undo the wrongs that you did. Because the thing is, you said it perfectly in one of your interviews when you said you know that you can't undo what you did. But the fact that you are trying and the fact that you are not stopping, you are continuing to speak with the victims, work with the victims, and tell them, you know, that what you did is wrong, that you are deeply sorry for what you did. And I see it. People don't see it, but I do see remorse. And it's good that you're showing remorse. And that is a lot of what is not being talked about. They kind of just address the situation, say the beginning parts of it, but nobody ever talks about the fact that one of the victims has forgiven you. Nobody talks about the fact that you've had another interview besides the one with Tamron Hall, which goes into a lot more detail, by the way. Seriously, guys, look at that one. Watch that interview and pay very close attention to the responses that are given there. Obviously, it's not a perfect interview, and there's definitely points where even I was side-eyeing Sherri too, but it at least gives more nuance to the situation. It gives more clarity as to where he was coming from, what he meant. It basically, any of those questions that were people wanted to know from the Tamron Hall interview, they're going to know here, which again will be linked into the description. So my whole thoughts on, because Sherri's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's already been confirmed by multiple people who know her, who work with her, and who do all that stuff that she is not going to quit drag. She is not going to leave it. She is still performing. Even recently was found to still be performing at a club known as Uncle Charlie's. And she is still getting, the things that she needs. With that being said, I do not, and I'm going to say this now, I do not condone her actions at all. And I 100% understand why people would not be comfortable if they saw her in person. With that being said, however, if you see Sherri Pie in person, because obviously she's still going to go to the supermarkets, she's still going to go to places to get the foods that she needs, because obviously we don't want death to happen to her. She still needs food, she still needs water, she still needs clothes. If she goes to that stuff and you bump into her, do not start anything. If you're uncomfortable with her, you are allowed to feel that way and you are justified to feel that way, but don't cause physical harm to Sherri because you hate what that person did. Because what you do when you do that is you are no different than they are. It's not helpful in the situation and it's just not going to help. So, and I know Sherri is still performing. I don't know every other place she's performing at, but she is still performing. She's still doing drag, all that stuff. That's something that's not really talked about. But yes, she's not banished from the scene like people think she is. She still has places she goes to. She still has places that she performs at. And if you happen to see her at a performance and you're not comfortable with it, don't attack her. Please do not physically put your hands on her and attack her. That is not going to help the situation and that is going to make it worse. And the other update for Sherri is, well, other than the Uncle Charlie situation, which confirms she's still performing, other than the victim, which again, I am not going to say his name out of privacy for him, and I don't want him to receive. Just don't do it. One of the victims has forgiven her, and most importantly, she has had another interview after Tamron Hall. Watch, go in with an open mind. Don't immediately go into that second interview immediately expecting the worst. Go in with an open mind, listen to what she has to say, and then after the interview is finished, then form your own conclusion. If you form a conclusion that no, she's just as bad even with this interview, that is a valid conclusion to have. Just like if you come into that interview and you have a better understanding of where she's coming from, that is also valid. So, with that being said, this has been a minor update on Sherry Pie. Like I said, I do not support, I'm going to keep saying this. Before I end the video, I do want to say, like I mentioned at the start, do not send hate to Sherry Pie, do not send death threats to Sherry Pie, and do not send any amount of viciousness towards any of the victims. The situation is still being dealt with, of course, behind the scenes, and that is how it's going to be. So don't send hate to anybody involved. No victims need hate. No Sherry Pie needs hate. Just that. And just to clarify, because I always have to say this, I do not support the actions of Sherry Pie. I never have, and I never will. What she did was wrong, and what she did hurt many, many people who are still healing. I do, however, support her potential change for the better. Do I think she's earned that change? No, not yet. I think it's possible, but I don't think she's earned it yet. She's off to a good start, though. A victim has forgiven her, and she is still continuing to help her mental health and get better as a person. So that is a start. So with that being said, this is Kunimitsu 877. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you all had a good time, and I hope you walk away from this, just don't send hate. That's all I ask. Do not send hate. So, Kunimitsu, signing out.